When you're ready, on we go. We'll do go mode. Hi, and thank you to Kat for joining me on today's Mental Health Monday interview. So the idea of these Mental Health Monday interviews is so that you can see that there are so many other people who also struggle with the effects of stress, depression, anxiety throughout their lives because of different things that have happened. But the point and the focus of all of these interviews is so that you can maybe get an understanding of how it felt for someone else and possibly see that in yourself. So it just helps you identify what's going on, but also see how they help themselves forward, because moving forward and coming out of mental illness is absolutely possible, but it starts with you. So the point of these interviews is so you maybe think, well, actually, that's something I haven't tried. Maybe I can give it a go and just take the first step on moving forward and out of mental illness. So I want to say thank you so much to Kat for joining me. And I'm not even going to attempt to say your surname because I tried off camera.
No, I don't blame you.
So I'm not being mean. It's just, let's just not go there. So it's just 3 really simple questions to kind of find out a little bit more about you, what you went through, and the main thing that really helped you move forward, because it's different for all of us. So if you'd over to you, if you'd love to introduce yourself, tell us what you do now, and kind of how life is now for you now that you're no longer struggling.
Okay, so my name is Kat, and my surname is Kuczynska. My parents clearly didn't intend for me to live abroad, and originally I'm from Poland, so my name can be quite a bit of the mouthful. Anyway, I am now self-employed. I've been running my own business for coming up to 3 years, and I am just starting the second business. So it's all it's all busy right now, and life is really good actually right now. But that certainly wasn't the case a couple of years ago, when I was going through quite a few changes really in my life on a very sort of big scale. So going back into really what I do nowadays is I work in veterinary industry, and I absolutely love it. My animals have always been my passion. So right now I consider myself very lucky to be able to do what I do.
Yeah, and obviously I'm really excited to be kind of helping you, doing an interview for you later with regards to your new business, because I found out something really shocking from you that I didn't know, is that vets, and when I say vets, for all the Americans watching, we don't mean veterans, we mean vets who play with animals. You know, they've got such high suicide rates, and I couldn't believe that when you were telling me. So
yes.
It's crazy.
The veterinary suicide rates are alarming, and they have been for years. Now, it is believed that it's a mixture of things. Obviously, you can't pinpoint the mental health issues on one thing only. They are way too complex for that. But there are some common denominators in the veterinary world in terms of the working hours. So to qualify as a vet, it does cost quite a bit. But then when they actually then qualify and they go out to treat animals, their initial salary is not really that rewarding, and it's not really that financially securing. So they are then working all these crazy hours. They are often on call, especially in rural areas, and so their life-work balance is completely out of whack. And I personally, I don't believe in life-work balance anyway. To me, is just a concept that we made up that doesn't really exist. But this is what people say. Essentially, their work very much steps into their life balance. There is then this lack of financial pay for their troubles, and there is something actually deep within what the vets are being told as well, because obviously they deal with euthanasia and
yeah,
allowing animals to die when they get to the point of the illness where there is no really return into reasonable health. And the vets, we believe that the vets don't really struggle with doing it as per se, because what they are told and what they see most of the time is that they relieve that animal from pain, and that they relieve that animal from a problem that can be fixed. Now, if you put that type of thinking into the human world, very often when people are depressed, they don't see the way out. They see their situation as a problem that can't be solved. And these are people that have been taught for years and years and years on end that there is a solution to that. Now, I'm not saying that that's all what there is.
I've never thought of it like that ever. That's just, yeah.
But it is essentially, or it is some sort of factor. And my personal opinion as well is people that go into the veterinary or animal industry have got something in common sometimes, and it is the fact that they feel like they're not very good with people. So they want to work with animals.
Okay.
And we go through the qualifying, we get our qualification, we go out in the world to treat animals and to help them, and guess what? Not only we are dealing with people, but we are dealing with emotionally charged people.
Yeah.
Now, emotionally charged people who are grieving because of their pet's behavior, illness, you name it. And then it rests on us suddenly to fix them. Whether you are a vet, physio, dog trainer, that type of emotional almost contract stays the same. And then if you don't, then there is almost not the guilt and blame play, but it certainly plays a role, I think, in the fact that it isn't, this industry really isn't easy. Especially if you are constantly dealing with emotionally charged people that you feel perhaps that you don't have the tools to deal with that. So overall, there are issues within the veterinary industry. There are various organizations that are trying to tap into it and fix it, but I think the future will tell really how successful various programs are.
Yeah, and I mean, it's amazing that you're now one of those people who's turned their attention to really changing that. And especially, you know, I'm going to go back to the fact that I, as a psychologist, I hadn't realised, you know, and I work on the suicide prevention board in our local area, and vets don't come up as one of the high risk people. So obviously at our next board meeting, I'm going back and say, hey, did you know we're not looking after vets? So I'm grateful for that. So thank you so much for sharing a bit more about what you're doing. It's so inspiring. So I'm going to just quickly pre-warn people. We're going to turn the tables a little bit, and we're going to talk about some things that are very personal. And, you know, Kat is being very open about her journey. So if you're not ready to hear some of these things, please do press pause, do turn us off, and maybe skip a little bit to when we seem a bit cheerier and find out what we did next. And you can always reach out if this has really hurt you or brought up some really troubling memories. So just be mindful, if you're watching this and other people are in the room, not everybody's ready to come out the other side yet, so we have to make sure we're being aware of everybody else. So just to pre-warn you, like all of the stories on these Mental Health Monday interviews, it's painful. So over to you, Kat, about your quite upsetting point in your life. And again, thank you so much for being open and willing to talk about this.
Yeah, of course. So rewinding my life by about 5.5 years, I was... it was Christmas time. I was living with my ex-partner. It was the house that we recently bought, and we were doing bits and bobs to renovate it. And my mum, who's traveling from Poland to visit us for Christmas, noticed that I had this cough that wasn't really shifting. And she pretty much blackmailed me into going to the GP to check it out. Now, I didn't think that there was anything wrong. I was playing polo at the time. I was going to the gym. I was playing tennis. So I was really active and healthy, for the lack of the better word, really, on the outside anyway. Now, for a couple of months before that, I had quite bad sweats at night. And again, I was blaming my ex-partner for just covering me with the duvet or whatever it was. And again, not once did it cross my mind that it could have been something much more serious and sinister than just my ex, basically. And I was working in a corporate world. Now, for those of you that have got the pleasure or displeasure of working in this world, taking time off for a GP visit was frowned upon a little bit. And although they would never sort of say it directly, but there was this feel of, we can't cope without you, or the department can't cope without you. And it was almost this unspoken rule that you just can't be sick. That's basically it. You can't be sick. You can't be not at work. And I was very much wrapped around in the rat race and climbing my corporate career. So I wasn't essentially prepared to just take some time off and go to the doctor to check it out. Toward end of January, 5 years ago, I eventually did go and had an X-ray. My doctor rang me the very next day in the morning to say that they found some shadows in my lungs. And then the roller coaster of tests have begun. I then had various tests pretty much every 2 days. At some point, there was 3 doctors in Manchester that were considering opening me up to see what it was. They essentially found a mass that was about 4 by 3 inches right in the center of my chest. And at first, they thought that it was lung cancer, but then when they looked at the size of it, they were like, with lung cancer of this size, you would be dead, like way, very, very long time ago, you would be dead. So they didn't really know what it was. And at some point, they had these 3 specialists in Manchester that met on Skype to discuss my case. And one of them noticed that my blood test wasn't run. So I remember it like today. The hospital rang me when I was at work, and they said, "Which is your closest hospital?" I was like, "Oh, the one in Warrington." They're like, "Okay, go there now. You need blood test, like now, because we are not going to get these doctors in the same room like for quite a while." And they were essentially waiting for me to go to the hospital and get that blood test done.
So they hadn't taken your blood test, which is
No.
kind of a really simple, basic
It is
step.
very simple, basic, absolutely. But you know what? And it wasn't even that it was a mistake.
Yeah, these things
I guess it was just a slight oversight. And don't get me wrong, it hasn't really resulted in any delay in my care, but it just shows that you can sometimes miss these tiny little things that are actually quite important. But anyway, blood test was done and all that. And 2 days after my 26th birthday, I received a diagnosis of very late stage cancer. It was a very aggressive cancer, lymphoma, Hodgkin's lymphoma. So it's a very aggressive and very quickly growing tumors, but because of that as well, when they whack them with a very, very high dose of chemo, it tends to respond reasonably well. So the chemo really has started, but I think for me there was various triggers throughout that journey that were particularly difficult for me, and one of them was initially I was refusing chemo. So I did not want to have chemo. I did not want to lose my hair. Back then I had long blonde flowing hair, and I was like, there is no way I'm losing that. So for me it was still very practical. And then when we were getting the diagnosis, my mom was in the room with me. And although she doesn't speak a huge amount of English, she did understand the diagnosis. And virtually to this day, that's probably one single most difficult moment for me. It was seeing my mum break down in front of me. And she's a nurse as well, so she knows the cancers, she knows the journey that her baby daughter was just about to step into. So that was it was horrible. And then obviously when I then said, oh, I do not want to have chemo, I want to have trial, and my parents just were, it was just horrendous. They couldn't understand really my decision, and they were not really even prepared to do anything out of ordinary with regards to the treatment. So it was very difficult couple of days at home. Anyway, we had another meeting with the consultant a couple of days later, and the consultant said when he heard that I want to go on trial, he found out a few bits and bobs for me, and he said that I'm not going to live long enough to get on the trial. And very much so, when I started then going through all these tests, suddenly I was getting ill. I had tumors and sort of swellings popping up from the lymph nodes in my neck and armpits. And sure enough, on my PT scan, the PET scan, there you go. On my PET scan, I did have 3 tumors that were already formed, and 2 more that were forming very quickly. So I then basically went through the chemo and then the radiotherapy. Now, when you go through the treatments, there is actually quite a bit of help available to cancer patients. So I didn't feel that bad during the treatment, really. Mm-hmm. Although my personality type as well is the type that just bottles things up and doesn't really speak about it. So that probably didn't help. But overall, on the outside anyway, I was quite cheery and I was doing well, if you like. And what I definitely wasn't prepared for was what happened after my treatment was over. And this was really where I started suffering with quite bad bouts of anxiety, and they were almost like panic attacks, but they were just so ridiculous now when I look back at them. I couldn't explain it to myself what was even happening. And when you go through any treatment and when you've got any serious illness, you go through the treatment, and at the GP level, our health system is quite not very good. But actually, when you go level higher, the care is extraordinary. Mm-hmm. And the care that I received through my treatment was second to none. I had nurses and consultants on the speed dial in case I was coming up with infections, which obviously during chemo are likely to kill you. So I had this bubble of care around me, and it was tangible bubble, and it was giving me some sort of almost safety and security, which I didn't even realize existed until it burst.
Yeah.
So what happens when you then finish your chemo and radiotherapy is you stop being ill, but overall you don't feel any different. And suddenly they tell you, yeah, you're all cured, you're fine, off you pop, go and live your life. And you're like, but I'm still dying. And I can't tell you exactly how long it took me to get my head around the fact that I wasn't dying. But it was probably about 3 months minimum and 6 months maximum. And the anxiety that sort of really happened at that point when my bubble of care burst around me was just something that I was not prepared for. Nobody told me that this will happen. And emotionally, I was not prepared for that either. Now, as humans, we've got parts of us that sort of make us, and some of us are quite stronger on feelings and emotion. These are the kinesthetic, or what we call kinesthetic. You can be auditory, visual, or you can be auditory, digital, which is self-talk. Now, I am a queen of self-talk, and I'm not very good with the emotion side, or my kinesthetic, if you like, on various tests does come quite low. Now, I know how to deal with it now, but back then I didn't. So all I had was not really delving into how I feel about it. I was just self-talking myself into misery and anxiety and what will happen. And it was almost like this vicious circle, because something would happen, it would trigger my anxiety. I would feel like I'm dying again. And then I would talk myself into it. So I would talk myself deeper into that hole, if you like. Now, the one thing for me that certainly helped was my dog. And actually, 4 days before my first chemo, I did get a puppy. I always wanted a dog.
Having a puppy is kind of one of the craziest things you've done, because they are a lot of work.
Absolutely. But for me, like, I always wanted a dog, and I've never had time for it, because both me and my ex were working very long hours.
Yeah.
Leaving at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, coming back at 6, 7. So you can't bring any dog into that type of environment. And then as soon as I knew that we'll be off for at least 6 months, I was like, no, I'm getting a dog, of course. So yeah, I did get a dog. Diesel was, he was everything to me, but it was tough initially. It was tough because he demanded quite a bit of attention. There was quite a bit of work that had to be done around him. And when you first start chemo, you will really, really, really feel ill. There was everything from vomiting to not eating very well and all that. So it wasn't pretty. And yeah, I had a little puppy with me as well, which now looking back at it, it was
also vomiting.
Yeah, but actually Diesel was the only thing that was getting me out, beating me out of bed in the morning. And my relationship with my ex-partner, it did have some cracks before the chemo and my illness, and those cracks certainly just widened after. He was struggling to deal with, in his own terms, with what was happening to me. I then felt like he was not there for me, and it just went on and on and on. We are really good friends now, but it took us quite a few years to get to this point after we split up. So anyway, for me, Diesel was the one thing that was really carrying me through my illness, and he was definitely keeping my spirits up through the illness. And he was one of these major things as well that got me out of this anxiety pit that I've managed to sort of dig myself into. And when I was ill, I sorted everything out. So if I did die, my family would be secured. They all knew exactly what I was getting. I invested in some properties as well, so they had some money, and I organized it basically so my mom would get a little bit more, so then she can look after my dog after I'm no longer there. And then at some point in my anxiety pit residence, I've actually realized that I've got opportunity now to find myself and to be there for Diesel for years to come. And I can't exactly remember a point of time that was a turning point, but it's almost like I just started shifting my thinking from delving into the past to actually looking into the future and into the opportunities that were there. At that point, I was already requalifying. So as soon as I got a Diesel, I knew that I don't want to do anything more than than working with animals. So I started requalifying really when I was already going through the treatment.
Wow.
And so I was studying as well throughout the treatment and the chemo and everything else. And yeah, it was just as if suddenly I managed to almost talk myself out of it and somehow show myself that there was a different path that I could follow. But very much for me, what it was Diesel and being there for him.
Yeah.
What that dog meant for me throughout the treatment, it was just super special. So one of my recommendations, if you are ill, if you can't get a dog, and obviously if you can't look after it, then don't do it, but definitely spend some time with them. Horses, dogs, they're so grounding that actually spending some time with them is going to take you away from your self-talk and self-pity, and they've just got something about them that they can really pull you into what is actually happening. And with the animals, dogs and horses alike, they live in a moment. So if they are happy, they are super happy, and they remember the fact that they were miserable yesterday because they got, I don't know, chicken dinner instead of beef dinner. You know, and something, spending just these simple moments with animals for me was probably the most important shift that I could have made.
Yeah, thank you. And I think I really love the way that you call it the anxiety pit, because I always call it the black hole, where you just, and you are so right, you get, it's the non-stop barrage of thoughts. And obviously they happen a lot of the time in the subconscious. And I always say, well, when you hear it, it's your subconscious shouting. But even when you can't hear it, it's still going on, and that affects how you behave. And it is as though every time you wake up and you listen, you're digging yourself deeper and deeper and deeper.
Yes.
And you're so right. The reason why people, and I think we forget this, the reason why people get out of the pit or out of the black hole is they find a reason to get out of bed. So many people who particularly struggling with depression and anxiety will struggle to get out of bed, and the key reason is there's nothing to get out of bed for. You know, I'm mentally healthy, and if I didn't have to get up, I wouldn't. Like, I mean, that's just evolutionary. You know, we save our energy if we don't need to expend it, because at some point we might need a mass of it. And you know, if you want to go into the evolutionary psychology, it's not my specialty, but that's how I kind of understand it. And so it's really funny, because I was talking about how important my dogs are for me. So I made a contract with them. When I rescued them, I made a contract that I would feed them, not clothe them, but give them a nice bed. They're too big to wear those funny outfits. But you know, the main thing they need from me is somewhere safe, somewhere warm, and to be allowed to exercise. And that has to come from me. And on the days where I don't want to get up, or life is just hard, or maybe I've taken on a client who's got a lot and really struggling, you can't help but take that on. But every morning it's a reset. You know, I get to start again, and because they need the walk, that forces me to go out. And then when I'm on the walk, I'll listen to motivational podcasts if I need it. I'll look at, you know, I mean, I love the summer because I'm looking at everybody's gardens going, oh, that's a really nice flower. I wonder what that is. You know, so it enables you to get out of your own head. And I think we are so hard on ourselves, thinking that we should be able to do it ourselves, but you need the outside. Sometimes you need something outside of you to help you get out of it, and then it becomes your choice to keep getting out and keep getting out and keep getting out. But the initial get out of bed, the initial get out of your head, it doesn't matter if somebody else is helping you do that.
No, absolutely. And I think what you actually mentioned there about the daily walks, when you receive chemo, depending on the chemo recipe that they give you, there is a one drug that is being used very frequently, and it does damage the lungs. So then your lung function then dives down. And the one thing that I can't stress enough when I was going through the treatment as well, it was walking Diesel. I had to take him out every single day, no matter how sorry for myself I felt. And looking back now, I can see how beneficial it was. And also, I loved him to bits. So spending the time with him, and back then I didn't discover the podcasts. The whole sort of self-development journey began for me really when I was sort of coming out of the cancer. But that daily exercise routine, I can't stress it enough how important that is when you're going through the treatment. And it's not something that you are going to feel like doing.
No, not at all.
Thing. You can never feel like doing anything, because you are never going to feel like doing anything at all. That's just the way that we are made. It's like when we were talking before the interview, we've upgraded our hard drive, but our software is still way behind. We are nowhere near evolved to really start questioning some of the stupid things that we do, really. And like you say, you know, with the thoughts that you tell yourself, with the unconscious, for people that are going to maybe go deeper into the self-development world, and I highly recommend it, there is this, your conscious mind that is your reason, and the unconscious mind that tends to be the gut feeling and all that, and these two communicate. But what our modern society does is, the modern society says, forget about the unconscious because it's too much of the woo-woo, we don't understand it, so forget that happens. Our modern world is focused on the conscious. But then when you are in those anxiety pits, and when you are in these depressive modes, they are not happening at conscious level, because we know that the stuff that we tell ourselves is, can I swear, bullshit?
Yeah, absolutely. I do. Accidentally a lot of the time.
You know, but we are not told to question ourselves. And one of the things that is massive for me, if I could just get like one message out to the world, is question everything, and especially what your mind tells you.
Absolutely. And I talk about that a lot. So your conscious is designed to protect you, and so is your subconscious. They're both designed to protect you, and in order to protect you, it stops you doing things that's scary. Like that's it. It will stop you jumping into a lion pit. Well, hopefully stop you jumping into a lion pit. But with anxiety, what you perceive as scary isn't actually scary. But you have the biological reaction straight away. You have the fear response. All of that happens because of, for years and years and years, and I'm talking thousands of years, your body's been built that way. You're hardwired to move away from fear, not towards things you love. So, and I always explain, because I always explain anxiety to people who just don't understand it, really, is the only way to overcome anxiety is to do it. Like, you have to do it, and you have to show your body and your brain that it's not actually scary. And to put that in real terms is, every time you want to overcome anxiety, you're literally staring down the barrel of a gun. That is what you're doing. It is the biological reaction you're having to whatever it is, no matter how crazy, how bonkers it is the same as you playing Russian roulette. And it is, and its biology takes over. And I just don't think people understand that enough, because people do get a bit wobbly when they're going on stage, and we do get a bit nervous. That's not the same as anxiety. I've had an anxiety attack where I thought I was going to vomit and faint at exactly the same time. I was shaking. You know, you're uncontrollable and you can't do anything. And then you look, you know, half an hour later, you're just like, what on earth was that over? Like, seriously? And it's just, people don't get it. And I kind of don't want everybody to kind of go through mental illness to understand it, but at some point, you kind of just think, do you know what, I wish you had a real anxiety attack, and then you'd get it. You can't get over it. But yeah, so thank you so much for obviously talking about something that's very, very difficult to hear for other people who are possibly going through it, or maybe lost somebody who's just battled cancer. Also opening up about your anxiety. And I have to say, so we had a pre-chat before to see, you know, whether we could, actually I was being interviewed for you, or I'm being interviewed for you next, and then I just went, oh my God, I want you to be interviewed for Mental Health Monday. But since you're talking about your burst bubble, I have changed the way I do my 12-week program. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, so I make sure, so it's crazy. So I fix people in the 12 weeks. And because I know they're then fixed, and I gave them resources and I told them where to go next. And then we have a break period. I say, right, you can't contact me in that period. And that's still part of it, because they have to go do it themselves to know that they can. But after the 3 months, they then get put on my daily email list, and they're also automatically being rolled on my reset program. So if they then need me and other things happen in life, they've got the safety net. So 90% of the people who come through the program never kind of need me again, which is good. That's the point of the program. But you know, I can't guarantee that life isn't going to fall apart again. And so when you said, you know, the bubble burst, and I was kind of like, oh, what do I do? I was like, oh my God, I've been doing that to all of my clients for 4 years. I'm a horrible person. Change it now. But again, so, you know, I do the vlog, I do the podcast, I do the blog. So I'm there for them, which I think is slightly different to the NHS. You know, my clients can reach out to me at any point if they need to. Whereas the NHS, it's very difficult, and it would have been very difficult for you to kind of, once you're well, to get back in. You have to go back in the bottom and go back into the system and get put on waiting lists. But yeah, so since our conversation, I have changed the way that I work. I've also you know, learn more about the struggles of vets. So I am so grateful to you for being able to help me make what I do better. So I got a lot more out of this.
No, I'm really glad, because like I say, you know, that isn't something that people really talk about. That bubble bursting, and suddenly you feel on your own. And like you were saying, you know, I mean, I could have rang the consultant, but what for? I was well. I had an appointment with them in 3 months' time to check my bloods again, but it just, it wasn't enough. And it's almost that it's so difficult to actually put your finger on exactly what it feels like. But that initial, okay, you're out on your own, is so scary, and so anxiety producing, that I think that overall as a society we have to give these people going through difficult periods and having that support. The support doesn't end when they leave, and I think it's exactly the same in the army, with the veterans that leave the army and they are dumped just in the society with the things that they've seen. You can't just go back. But what we don't have right now is the interim period of almost that transition into the normal life. And it's I can see it now across so many industries, but I can see it now because I've been through it.
And you find that the majority of people who are in positions to make changes have never really experienced any kind of trials or tribulations on their own personal journeys. And I think the reason why all the change makers exist is because they've woken up to the rubbishness that's knocking around, and they've gone on this huge self-development journey, and they know what the impact is, and it's enabling other people to kind of understand it. And this is my whole idea for these Mental Health Mondays. One, I know that by other people hearing stories from every walk of life, every person doing every single job, every gender, every race, every religion, talking about their experiences, because mental illness doesn't have a category of tick boxes. It doesn't care where you grew up, who you lived with, and what you look like. It will hit if life gets hard enough, but I know for many people they need to see somebody who's very similar so that they can understand, okay, well, this is what they did, maybe I can try that. And hopefully one, I know that your journey is going to inspire people to take the next step and the right step in their journey, but also inspire other people to just talk about what they're going through, because that is the most important step. When you open up, then so many people can help you, but it has to come from you. So I just want to say thank you so much to Kat again for being on here. And if you want to be part of these Mental Health Monday stories, please do get in touch. You will have to go live. It is about being on video. So if you don't feel comfortable being on video, then there are other platforms where you can blog about it. But this is all about being on video, because I think it enables you to really there's a deeper level of understanding through the video. So thank you so much to Kat. If you want to be part of it, do drop me a comment or private message me, and we will make it happen. Have a wonderful rest of whatever day you're doing, and I look forward to speaking to you all soon.
Yeah, no worries. Bye.
Bye.